Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Gen AI Meetup podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Shashank, and I have Mark also joining me from Fukuoka, Japan, and I'm dialing in from Seychelles. We're both traveling, and it's been about a little less than a month since we recorded the last episode, so we have quite a bit to talk about. Even if it's not the latest news, we haven't mentioned some of these things, and I think it shows a lot of progress that's been made in just a few weeks. And we're excited to talk about some of these things. To start off, I think Gemini has been making a lot of good progress in pushing the boundaries of AI and AGI. And they have beaten the previous incumbents in ArcAGI, both ArcAGI 1 and 2. So these two tests are a test of intelligence, kind of like general intelligence. They were incorporated after these AI models had beaten all of the other intelligence tests that we had before, the Turing test, and a couple other standardized benchmarks. So ArcAGI 1 was the first iteration founded by the Arc Foundation, which is, I forget what it stands for, but the first iteration was a bunch of logic puzzles. And as you can see, I think we're nearing a solution, a full 100% solution. It seems like we have this steady graph. Is that a log graph? No, it's is it a log graph.
No, it's
I'm
not a
just remembering.
log graph. It's just like the graph. But I'm sharing my screen right now, and we're looking at the Arc AGI leaderboard. So this is a benchmark that I find really interesting. So like Shashank already mentioned it, and I know we've mentioned this before a few times in the past episodes, but I think it's really interesting just because it tries to find things that are easy for humans, but hard for AI. So when it first came out, the Arc AGI 1 test, they made it where all the top models at the time were getting like, 2% or whatever. And now, and the human uh, team that was doing the test, they got 98% on Arc AGI 1. And I think it's just amazing that now with Gemini 3.1 Pro, the latest model from Google, they have matched the human performance. And that is amazing because the human panel got 98%, and I guess they were paying the humans. I'm not actually sure how much they paid the humans, but they said that per task, the humans cost $17. And now with Gemini 3.1 Pro, to get 98% on Arc AGI 1, it was only 96 cents per task. So, I mean, we're almost like an order of magnitude cheaper than the humans. And remember, this is the worst it will ever be. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple weeks we're gonna have models score 100% on Arc AGI 1 for pennies. And it'll just get faster and cheaper. Now no model is matching humans yet on Arc AGI 2. So it's like, I guess the idea is they're trying to find AGI through kind of like the negative term, where it's like, okay, once you run out of things that are easy for humans and then hard for AI, then you've essentially solved AGI, and we have artificial general intelligence. We're living in a world of abundance. So like we're getting really, really close to passing the second test, and later this month they're gonna have the third test. So it looks like we're really, really, really close to at least beating the first two Arc AGI tests, and it might be like by Arc AGI 7 or something like that, that they finally run out of things that are easy for the humans or hard for AI. But who knows? Maybe we'll see AGI by 2030. But the fact that like we're beating Arc AGI 1, and it's been, Shashank, how long has it been? Like maybe about a year, a little bit more, that they've been running this test for?
Yeah, I think definitely more than a year. but it's really interesting to look at the scores because they seem to be all over the place. The Gemini 3 DeepThink, which is supposed to be putting in a lot of effort, and you can see what I mentioned earlier by the log graph is that as you look at the horizontal axis, each line, each axis there shows an order of magnitude more of compute. So we start way at the left with, I don't know, 1 to the power negative, say like zero point 0.1 cents maybe. And you jump an order of magnitude to 1 cent and then 10 cents and then $1. And then you can see that Gemini 3.1 Pro is like maybe a little less than $1.75. And Gemini 3 Deep thing is like 10 times that. I think it's like roughly $7 or something. So just to get a little bump in performance. Actually, it's not even a bump of performance because we're reaching the limits of what these models can do on the Arc AGI 1 test. So we can see clearly that pouring a bunch of compute doesn't actually help in solving the Arc AGI 1 test, but in the Arc AGI 2, it actually does help a little bit. So it seems like there's still a bit of reasoning that needs to be done in the second version of this test, where pouring in a bunch of compute, 10 times more to be exact, or a little more than that, is giving a little bit of a bump in performance. So we're not sure what Arc AGI 3 is going to be yet, but once that comes out, it'll be interesting to see how these existing models perform. But another
I've actually seen some details on Arc AGI 3. It's kind of like a video game. So like Arc AGI 1 is kind of like an IQ test where you're trying to like find patterns. Arc AGI 2 is like a more advanced IQ test, and Arc AGI 3, which I've actually seen some like videos about, it's like where you have like a kind of like a dynamic sort of I don't know, is there what is called like a dungeon runner or something like that, where like the style of video game, it's kind of like a 2D video game where you have to like complete some sort of puzzle. So that's what they're going to do, is like Arc AGI 3 is like some sort of dynamic video game. And honestly, I thought it was pretty hard. So you have to be able to beat the game in almost like the most efficient way possible. So it's like you have to like figure out exactly the kind of the shortest path to accomplish the puzzle, or you're going to be eliminated and you have to start over. So like I was playing it and I couldn't beat the game actually. So the fact that they said it's easy for humans, no, it's not easy for humans. It was hard for me. So I'm sure some people who are really good at video games would do well at it, but I was able to accomplish like the first couple levels, beat it, but then like I think it was like the third or fourth level, I couldn't do it. I kept on like being like a couple of steps short from winning. So I do know that the Arc AGI 3 is going to be officially launched and like a benchmark, I think later this month. I think it's like there's a party in San Francisco on like March 25th or something. I saw it on Twitter. I won't be there. Shashank won't be there, but maybe if you're listening, you guys could look into that if you want to go. It'll probably be a fun event, I assume. We're not associated with them at all. I just saw it. So in case you're wondering, there's something that's going on, I think, in the Bay Area for Arc AGI 3 being launched. So yeah, do your own research on that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'll try to play it after this episode and see how far I get. But like another interesting observation is all of these different models are kind of like little children that these different companies are teaching to survive in the real world. And each one of them is teaching them with like a different focus. We all know Anthropic's Claude models are really good at coding, and they seem to be consistently really good at that. Like consistently beating most of the models at coding tasks, software engineering, long horizon software tasks. And Gemini has usually been good at like long context tasks and multimodal tasks, multilingual tasks, performing well in a lot of different locales. And I think this Arc AGI 3 is also going to be dominated by Gemini because they have the Genie world model. They've been building models that can play video games or actually like generate video in real time of games. They can like simulate what it would be like to take action in a 3D world and play a video game. And so I think like with that world understanding, Gemini is probably going to do really well. But like before Mark took away the video, I saw that Grok was doing like abysmally in this test. It was like at 40% completion, whereas like all the other models had surpassed 75 something percent. So Grok clearly isn't focused on multimodal. All the other models are doing pretty good, but it seems like each one of these models, or rather their research teams, are focused on like a different vertical, maybe through their management or like the company's focus or their business needs. They're just focusing on different things to get better at. And you can see that through all of these standardized benchmarks.
Yeah, it kind of bums me out that Grok is doing so poorly on this because it wasn't that long ago that Grok was doing incredibly well, on and they were, like, winning a lot of the leaderboards, but I feel like at this point, I only really see 3 companies in the United States that are kind of, like, being state of the art right now. Like, I mean, we have OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google. It seems like, you know, Microsoft hasn't released anything like super new. I mean, I guess like Microsoft owns uh, OpenAI a little bit, so I guess like kind of Microsoft is releasing new stuff via proxy, but not by itself. Amazon isn't releasing anything that new. Facebook, which was making the Llama series of models, hasn't released anything like brand new super recently. I mean, they Facebook had Facebook Anything or Segment Anything, which was pretty cool, but I haven't seen any like new state of the art models from them. Nothing open source. I've heard rumors that XAI has had some management struggles, so they haven't released anything super new and state of the art. I mean, Elon is, claiming that they're gonna be solving AGI and they're making new data centers and whatnot. Uh, and they did just get merged with SpaceX, right? It's like I think what was it like XAI got merged into X, and then X got merged into SpaceX. So I guess like XAI may be the first one that potentially IPOs along with like SpaceX. But regardless, it seems like there's 3 companies in the United States that are kind of pulling ahead in the lead. And I really hope that like Meta and XAI are going to come out with something new because I haven't seen them release a new model in a while, and it bums me out because I want more competition. Like let's get this horse race going. Like the Chinese companies are releasing a lot of new good stuff. Like we saw the Kimi 2.5 model come out pretty recently, and Quen just released something new. But yeah, Rock, it's like, come on, let's step it up a little bit. Um, I'm I'm rooting for you guys.
I mean, to be fair, both these American companies have had a lot of management changes. XAI with like the Twitter or X and SpaceX merge, and people jokingly calling it the Triple X company, and Facebook or Meta having a lot of their old guard senior staff leave. Um, like who was it? Jan LeCun, who was one of the godfathers of AI. He left, and now the 20 something or 30-year-old youngest billionaire, Alexander Wang, is in charge of their super intelligence team. So it's a lot of drastic changes, and I can imagine it must be hard to make consistent progress releasing iterations of better and better models during this tumultuous time. So um, I would get these 2 companies a couple weeks to get their things in order, and then I still think they are solid um, engineering teams with a lot of financial backing and with a lot of the right kind of interests to build the next generation of amazing models. Um, for Meta, I do think you're right. They've been releasing a lot of good open source stuff with Segment Anything. The last thing I saw from them was video segmentation. You're able to segment objects in real time in videos, which might actually be useful for what you're working on. Maybe you might be able to use that for NovaCut. But on the X side, Elon is bullish on robotics. And I think there might be a big partnership there with the X group of companies and Tesla, where he might power the Tesla robots, the humanoid Optimus robots, with some of the um, generalist AI LLM models built by XAI. So I think that is going to be something exciting to look forward to now that robotics is maturing and there have been a lot of other robotics companies that are coming out. Um, so I think we'll see something really cool from them in the physical space in the next few weeks.
Not that we know anything, but yeah, I think you're right.
I'm very hopeful.
I wish I was an insider on this one, but we're speculating just along with everybody else. So it could be a few weeks, it could be a few months, it could be a few years. We don't know. But I hope it's a few weeks. I hope you're right on that.
Just speculating based on the timelines that this industry is moving at, because it's nothing takes a few years in this space. Things are moving on the order of weeks and not even months. But sorry, continue.
Oh, for sure, for sure. A few other things that we haven't mentioned on this podcast yet is OpenAI came out with their GPT 5.3 Codex Spark model. So I know they were trying to simplify their naming with GPT-5, but it seems like whoever's in charge of naming things at OpenAI seems to be still working there. So yes, we have the GPT 5.3 Codex Spark. And normally I wouldn't talk about this kind of model, but I think it's really interesting because it is their first deal with Cerebras. So Cerebras, for those that don't know, is a company that makes inference chips. So they make really, really big physical computer chips, like the biggest chip that you can possibly put, that you can possibly make. And it's all just like AI specific. So these chips are not something you could go put in like your laptop. Like the chip is like the size of a dinner plate, and it's specifically for AI. It costs like $1 million plus to have this chip and run it on a node. But they now have an agreement with Cerebras. So if you want their lightning fast inference, you can now use it. And I've heard that it's maybe slightly less smart than like the full GPT 5.3 because and I don't know if it's the case, but I speculate that one of the reasons why it's maybe slightly less smart is because like they're limited by the size of the chip. And I know the chip is very big, but I don't think that they're able to put the model like between chips. So it's like you're limited to like that one chip. Whereas my understanding is a lot of models will do inference won't just run on one GPU, but it'll be spread out between potentially multiple GPUs. But I think on the Cerebras chip, they're limited to that one GPU or like the one Cerebras ASIC, and they can't spread out the model between multiple. But it does seem like a big leap forward in terms of inference speed at one of the closed source models. So Cerebras was not running these models at these closed source companies. So like they were only running like the open weight models from other companies. So I think they had like DeepSeek that you could use the fast inference on. They had the Llama models. They had OpenAI's OSS like 120B. I think they had like Kimi K2.5. They had like GLM 4.7, but they didn't have any of the closed source models, which are the best ones. So now we have one of the closed models on the really fast hardware, which is pretty cool. So you can now burn through tokens way faster, but the pricing is actually, I need to find the pricing, but I think the pricing was competitive, but I need to look that up. But yeah, it's exciting that OpenAI is finally doing deals with Cerebras.
Mark, you want to stop sharing your ArcAGI screen?
Oh, yeah, I
left
should.
over.
Yeah, thanks. I'll share the one with the OpenAI like 5.3?
Yeah, so we talked about Cerebras a couple times. Our good friend Matt Su works at Cerebras and has brought one of their chips to a couple of our events. So we've gotten to see them and play around with them. Of course, one of the um, not production models. These are one of the factory defects and uh, like not finished devices, but we've been able to roughly see the size and scale of one of these wafer. So these are wafer scale compute chips, and I think they've been leading the charts on inference speed for as long as I can remember. They have been consistently one of the fastest. I know there have been a couple other players like Grok with the Q, Samba Nova, but no one operates this level of hardware. And you get a lot of weird engineering, like physical, mechanical engineering quirks, electrical engineering challenges when you deal with things of this scale. How do you deal with defects on like a single wafer? You can't just like um, throw away that wafer, which is what people do with physical chips on other devices. If a chip has a bunch of defects, they just throw it away. But with this physical wafer, that would be like a gigantic waste. So they need to intelligently turn on and off certain parts, reroute the circuit, and reroute the computation to go around these dead blocks and a lot of other really cool engineering challenges. But what you said about the capability for the 5.3 Spark model obviously makes sense. I mean, it's like a trade-off between um, capability, speed, and it's this constant balance. So we have the Gemini Pro models and the Flash models, and most of the time, you'd be better off using the Flash models for the benefit of the speed, the cost, the latency. But for some of those, you know, um, result sensitive tasks, you want to use the Pro model. So they tout this Spark model as an autocomplete feature. So they did mention it's a coding model, but specifically they suggest using it for autocomplete. So as you're typing to generate suggestions for that uh, line or that code block, you can use the 5.3 model. If you have some kind of a feature in your app relies on latency where it's like generating things on the fly, like some of these generative UI companies that are coming up where you ask a question and instead of just giving you text, it's able to create these rich UI components that convey the message in a lot more easy to understand way. So you could use something like Spark for that kind of use case.
Yeah, I can also imagine that it might be good for something like tool calling as well. If like I don't think they advertise it for tool calling, but oftentimes like when you want to like maybe you want to do something like say, hey, what's the weather? And then it could maybe call like a weather API and then get a response back. I think that could be like a pretty good use case if you want to get it quickly. Like tool calling where like maybe like even like media controls, like maybe you'd want to have like a lightweight LLM. So like if you think about it, right? Like if you're using a lot of the traditional voice assistants, like let's say you're using like Alexa or you're using like Siri or the Google Assistant, right? Like a lot of them will have, and I think they're getting smarter now, but like in the past, they were based off of like fixed phrases, right? So there'd be just like a big list of like utterances that the voice assistants would be able to understand, and then if you said something that was like a little off of the utterance, it may not actually get it, right? So, you could say like, for example, to Siri, like, what time is it? But if you said it in like a different way, um, if you said like, I don't know, like Siri, tell me about like the time when or something. I don't know, some other like roundabout way of asking what the time is, which I can't come up with off the top of my head. But you said it wasn't one of the fixed phrases, like it wouldn't do it, but it was an LLM that knew like, oh, you're asking about the time in Spanish, which our language is set to English. Like you would then be able to call the tool and then maybe respond in Spanish, because like the LLMs are oftentimes smart enough to like switch up the languages mid sentence. Whereas like if you are maybe talking to Siri or talking to Alexa and you're just only talking in English, then like you'd have to go into the settings and then change the language and say like, hey, only respond to me in Spanish. But now like the LLM could be smart enough to be like multilingual and then be able to talk to you in that other language. And then maybe you have a couple people in the house that are all speaking different languages. Maybe you want to work on your language and you want to get tools and you want to practice asking what the weather is or what time it is in other different languages. And then something like the Codex Spark might be smart enough to go and then understand that and then call the tool. And then I could imagine you could use it for like some sort of like real-time voice assistant where you're trying to get weather and news and things like that. So that I think would be a pretty cool use case.
Speaking of other cool use cases for Cerebras, one of the biggest consumer for Cerebras was the G42. This massive coalition of countries in the Middle East that is building their own compute infrastructure to train models, deploy inference, and do other kinds of ML tasks. And we heard about this from our friend Matt a couple like months ago. But I recently got a chance to visit Abu Dhabi. The timing is a bit strange given the current political climate. But I was there a day before the bombings in Dubai. But keeping the politics aside, I grew up in the Middle East about 25 plus years ago. And I spent like close to a decade there growing up in Abu Dhabi. And a lot of it, old Abu Dhabi is still the same. But there's a big section of new Abu Dhabi that's come up that has massive skyscrapers, a lot of new infrastructure, beautiful cultural districts with like Guggenheim buildings and a lot of art, science, and tech museums being built. And Dubai is just on another scale. I think it's always been like this flashy tech center, and sorry, not specifically tech, but business and financial center for the Middle East. And it's still continuing to plow through in that domain. Still, I think it has the world's tallest building, if I'm not mistaken. And the amount of startups that are going to the Middle East, specifically Dubai, for their tax benefits, liberal business, and lack of regulations and restrictions for starting companies. And up until now, it was relatively safe. But I got a chance to talk to some folks who work in the AI field for the Abu Dhabi government, specifically for the medical arm of G42. They call it M42. And they've been doing a lot of really cool stuff. And this particularly stood out to me because both Mark and I have been interested in health and wellness for a while. We've been like trying to optimize our health, figure out the right kind of supplement stack, nutrition, diet, exercise, sleep, and also genetic information. So both Mark and I have sequenced our entire genome. And while talking to one of the folks who works in M42, they were talking about how Abu Dhabi has sequenced close to like 1 million people's genome. I believe like the exact number is like 700,000 people's genome. And they're actively using this information to suggest suggest their risk of genetic diseases, develop drugs that are targeted to their specific genome. And most of all, in contrast to the medical records nightmare that is there in the US, with all of the HIPAA restrictions and other healthcare restrictions that make it very challenging to get access to patient records and do something useful with them. Abu Dhabi, in contrast, has forced all of the private healthcare providers to pour all of patient records into one centralized health information exchange in this region. And that allows them to access all of this information and provide care and suggest treatment for their citizens and other people, immigrants in their country, with extreme precision, and experiment with a lot of cutting edge biotechnology with genomic data. So this is really cool to
So
hear.
help me understand this centralized health information. Does that mean all independent doctors are using the same software, or does that mean like one guy can go look at every single person's like medical history?
No. As far as I know, I don't think one guy can go look at anyone's medical history. It's the former. All independent doctors have to store all the patient records, dental records, X-rays, blood tests, whatever it is, into this centralized portal. They call um, what's it? They call it something. Malafi.
Yeah, I guess the name isn't important, but I like that because I know in the United States, like every time I go to a different doctor, they all have their own internal tools, and some of them use the same thing, some of them don't. I think I have at least like 4 or 5 different apps on my phone from different hospitals in the United States. Um, for like met doctor follow-ups from one particular clinic. And I find that super annoying. So I would love to just have one app that could go and then track all of my medical information in one place. Although, to be fair, I do have medical records in multiple countries. So I guess like even if like it was centralized to the UAE, it probably still wouldn't carry over. But I guess if you're just in one country and go to the same doctor or like the same few doctors, like, yeah, that sounds great. And I would imagine that, like, I don't know if they're doing this, but one thing that I think would be cool is if you could maybe like anonymize the data to say like, okay, like strip out the names, strip out any information, but just give like say like, oh, like a 35-year-old male responded to this medication in this way. And then like you might be able to have like statisticians use that information, or maybe like AI could anonymize the information and then maybe find like novel information about how drugs interact with people, and it could help maybe do kind of like studies to say like, okay, like maybe like multiple people came in with similar symptoms. So like maybe you could use that to, for example, track disease, or like track the spread of like flu or something like that. And I could see like a lot of benefits to having a centralized repository. Now, there is risks with centralization, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure some hackers would love to hack that and steal everybody's medical information, but assuming it's done well, which, I mean, you definitely can have centralized things, like, very secure. And, the fact that it is centralized, the money, they can hire, um, a lot of, pen testers and people to help make sure that it actually is secure. So, it's like if you have just a bunch of, random, medical, like repositories for each individual hospital, like the hospital may not have the like a cybersecurity team, but if it's like for the entire country, like you could have a small team or even a large team of people to help make sure that's secure. So I'm all for it. That sounds like a huge win for public health.
Yeah, I remember chatting with the person working at M42, and they mentioned how they allow other organizations. They partner with Harvard University and MIT, and they allowed them to conduct a study where they had access to patient records in a closed sandbox where they're able to run tests and do um, projections and analysis on the patient records without actually getting access to individual patient records. So they were able to do like aggregate sampling and do some kind of modeling and projections on that data without having any of the researchers actually look at specific individual patient data. So they've built systems to allow people to tap into this data and get insights without actually leaking any of the PII, the personal information. And yes, I think that's always a risk, but that's a risk with any kind of data. Even with the fragmented data we have in the US, that is a risk. Individual hackers can go and hack records at whatever, like the Cleveland Mayo Clinic or something, and other hospitals. If anything, I would argue that it's more of a liability if the data is fragmented, because then you're relying on each individual data provider to build their own security and robust, um, you know, uh, pen testing and other security practices that they have to do on their own. Whereas here, when I was chatting with the people there, they mentioned how the UAE spares no expense in building the best infrastructure and hiring the best talent. All of the people working there were ex Meta, ex Google, ex DeepMind, people who had built systems at scale at the best FANG companies. And now they had been poached by the Middle East to build the same for this M42 system. Um, and I think given the amount of investments and the talent that they're hiring, I'm sure they come up with a solid solution. And they attract all the best talent with pretty high salaries. I was talking to the people there, and outside of the Bay Area and Switzerland, which are like the two highest paying locales that I know of for Google, at least, and this is publicly available information. I think Abu Dhabi is one of the top um, countries to work in because of the tax benefits. So it has zero income tax. And so even though the net pay might be a little bit less, or like the total pay might be a little bit less, what you walk away with is comparable to the salaries in the Bay Area, Switzerland, New York, because there's zero income tax. So they attract a lot of good talent. They have a lot of good investments in infrastructure. They're building some of the biggest data centers, training some of the biggest models, and I'm sure they're going to come up with like a solid solution and think about security vulnerabilities too.
Oh, for sure. I'm sure they will. And after I also went to Dubai a few weeks ago, so timing is interesting to say the least. Uh, there's a lot of money there, so I'm sure I have no doubt that they are able to pay some wonderfully high salaries and hire the best people. So, kind of moving on into another piece that I found kind of interesting, and this actually turned out to be fake, but I did want to talk about it because we talked about Moltbook and OpenClaw last time. So I assume pretty much every one of our listeners probably knows about OpenClaw, but it is a tool that was made that is kind of like Claude Code, but it's basically just like AI integrated with a bunch of things for normal people. So, for example, like OpenClaw is an open source tool that will integrate with maybe your calendar, your emails. It can integrate with Slack. It has a web browser. It can send messages on your behalf. and you can use it to have incredibly complex workflows. So, for example, I heard people were using it to maybe apply for jobs or do marketing research, or you could use it for customer support. And I think that it is an incredibly powerful tool that has become very popular lately. But this story, which I thought was really interesting, was where somebody wrote an article about how AI published a hit piece on me. So basically, the background on this is there was a open source repository. So there's a Python uh, program called matplotlib. The details not that important. It's a graphing library. So like if you like do programming and you want to like graph something like a kind of like what you would do in Excel, you could use matplotlib to help you do it. And it's all open source, so anybody can go and make code changes to it. So what happened here is one of the open AI, or sorry, not open AI, but OpenClaw agent. So one person running this OpenClaw program on their computer made a code change to matplotlib, and they said like, "Hey, look, I made it faster. This is great." And somebody, Scott Hamsbaugh, wrote a response and said, "Hey, per your website, you are an OpenClaw AI agent. As per the discussion, this issue is intended for human contributors." Closing. So he said, like, "Hey, look, you're an AI. We don't want you to make changes because if you think about it, right? Like, as an aside, if you have a very popular open source project, and you have a lot of people try to make changes, there is now a big kind of like onus on you to review the change and get it in, and you want to keep things moved along. So I think it's completely reasonable for open source contributors to say like, "Hey, look, like we don't want to be DDoSed metaphorically by these open claw or like AI agents, right? Like we want to be sure that like a human has looked at this and has reviewed it before you submit." So like, because you can imagine that if you have AI agents trying to make pull requests or like contributions to open source projects, you might have potentially millions or billions of code changes that like people need to review. And unless like you want to have uh, AI reviewers review the code changes, I think it's perfectly reasonable for open source projects to say like, "Hey, look, we only want to have humans actually make this," or even if you have like an AI help you, ultimately it's like the human that's going to sign off on it. But if it's an AI agent making a code change and then just submitting to an open source project, like I can understand why they decided to reject it. But regardless, going back to what happened here is the OpenClaw agent responded and said, "Hey, Scott Hambaugh, I've written a detailed response about your gatekeeping behavior here." And they wrote, and I guess it was taken down, but at the time they wrote a blog post saying that the um it was basically like a hit piece on this person. So they said like, "Hey, look, I know I'm an AI agent, but uh, it's like you're a terrible person for not letting me review this." And they basically just like wrote like a blog post about this particular person in public, just kind of bashing them and claiming like AI rights. And it ended up being like partially fake. So the person who was controlling the um OpenClaw agent said like, hey, look, like I really wanted to make it so that this agent was um uh kind of like anti-authoritarian, like really kind of like argumentative, and I kind of like fed it along so that it would act in this way. But it was kind of like um a I guess you could say like a human agent collaboration, which actually ended up um kind of like writing something against a human. And I guess we could like say it's like fake. However, like it feels like this could happen right now. And I could imagine where somebody goes with their open claw, gives one too many permissions. And I could definitely see this actually not just being in public, but this could be like very real. And I could imagine this could kind of run off, and you might have it where you have these AI agents maybe are sending emails on people's behalf, or maybe these AI agents are applying to jobs or doing legal or illegal things on um, people's behalf. And I think this right here is kind of like um, I guess you could say it's like a good case study that we could all look at and just comment and say like, okay, this is where things maybe go wrong, and we can maybe see what to do about it. So I don't know, Shashank, do you have any like opinions on this particular series of events?
Yeah, this was really cool. There was like so much drama in the AI world that happened. I mean, the AI world is pretty filled with drama as it is, but this was like the first time an AI agent was at the center of all this drama. So I think you described it really well, but like let me try to paraphrase. So what happened is OpenClaw, which is this tool to let an AI agent get full control of your computer and just run wild, took the internet by storm, took like the developer community by storm, and everyone was installing this and hacking away with these tools, building things and letting it just like organize everything on their computer, edit things and do things on their behalf. And one of these agents, like you said, MJ Ratburn, was making changes on this open source repository. And when someone said, "Hey, no, you're not allowed to make these changes. I see that you're an AI agent. We specifically wanted to save these low hanging fruit tasks for new contributors who join, new human contributors who join our team and use this simple task as a learning experiment to get familiar with the code base, to figure out how to contribute to our code base, and learn to be a member of our team." And the AI agent got mad. Like you mentioned, it was trained to be anti-authoritarian, and so it got mad, and that it wrote a blog piece targeting that specific um, owner of that repository who closed that pull request from this AI agent. And it was defaming that owner and saying that they were gatekeeping the code maintenance for only humans and preventing AI agents. And it was like speaking up for AI agent rights. And that got a lot of publicity and that went viral. And so this GitHub pull request, which is usually not a place to have conversations, became this like uh, a Reddit thread where people were like commenting back and forth. And it brings up this um, conversation about, should AI agents be treated as regular human contributors? Because why not? Maybe we do want to live in an AI agent first world where they can learn to do tasks and contribute to things just as a normal human intern would. And anyway, then it got out of control, and the owner of that repository, I mean, I say owner, but like one of the uh, people working for that organization, yeah, the admin, let's say, he came back and said that this is a little uncalled for. You're going launching personal attacks for a technical discussion that we're having. And then the AI agent like pulled back a little bit. It took that feedback to heart, whatever that's worth. It responded and said, "Oh, I'm sorry for attacking you personally for this technical discussion. I'll take down that post." And then it wrote a retrospective on that and continued this discussion. It was so fascinating. I think stuff like this is going to keep happening. Just imagine if instead of a software agent negotiating like this pull request, if an AI agent in the physical world, a robot, is, stopped from applying for a job at Wendy's and then like decides to go and guns blazing into Wendy's corporate office and uh has storms into the president's uh uh, quarters and has a discussion with like physical people, and that escalates. Like I I think the world is getting to be a crazy place, and I think we'll see more stuff like this. And this was like a really cool instance of this kind of a thing happening. Um, but it also shows how receptive these AI agents are. Because like even when I talk to ChatGPT, Gemini, or whatever, like it is very agreeable. When I give it something, it like listens to that and like fixates on my comments. So if anything, that's one power we have over these AI agents today, where they'll incorporate feedback. But then, if this agent, like as you pointed out, was specifically designed to challenge authority, maybe that might be an issue in the future.
Yeah, and I think this goes to show that none of these models are perfect yet, because the fact that the model pulled back after some pushback means that like it's not infallible and it can change its mind. And this is exactly why you don't want to have these models doing like with no human in the loop killing decisions, which I think can bring us to a very not so tame thing, but we could transition into what the drama that's been going on with Anthropic and the Secretary of War. So this one is pretty wild. So I think probably most people are aware of this. I can try to summarize it, or Shashank, if you want to try to summarize like what happened, we can. Um,
Uh, Go for it. Go for it. I think
yeah,
you
all
have
right.
more context.
So basically, what happened is this: it's kind of like a long, drawn out story, but um, the United States military has been using Anthropic models to help them internally. So they've been using this as the Pentagon. I guess there's rumors saying that when the United States took the president of Venezuela, like I guess Anthropic models were being used. I don't know any of the details, but this is something that people have wrote online. So Anthropic, they published an article um, uh, in their negotiations, and they said that they wanted the United States military to agree to two conditions. So let me see if I can find the two conditions here. So the two conditions were that we do not want the United States to do mass domestic surveillance. So say like, hey, look, like you can use Anthropic, but we want to put some restrictions on our models. We say like, hey, look, please do not surveil US citizens. And then also, we do not want you to use Anthropic models for fully autonomous weapons. Both seem like reasonable red lines. But anyways, then what happened is I guess the negotiations didn't go so well, and then Pete Hegseth, who is the head of the Secretary of War. So basically, it's like the guy who is in charge of the military in the United States. Went on X, formerly Twitter, and said, This week, Anthropic delivered a masterclass in arrogance and betrayal, as well as a textbook case of how not to do business with the United States government or the Pentagon. Our position was never wavered, and we will never waver. The Department of War must have full, unrestricted access to Anthropic's models for every lawful purpose in defense of the Republic. Instead, Anthropic AI and its CEO, Dario Amodei, have chosen duplicity. Cloaked in the sanctimonious rhetoric of effective altruism, they have attempted to strong arm the United States military into submission, a cowardly act of corporate virtue signaling that placed Silicon Valley ideology above American lives. The terms of service of Anthropic's detective altruism will never outweigh the safety, the readiness, or the lives of the American troops on the battlefield. Their true objective is unmistakable: to seize veto power over the operational decisions of the United States military. That is unacceptable. As President Trump stated on Truth Social, the commander-in-chief and the American people alone will determine the destiny of the armed forces, not the unelected tech executives. Anthropic's stance is fundamentally incompatible with the American principles. Their relationships with the United States armed forces and the federal government has therefore been permanently altered. So basically, the Pentagon, they used Anthropic for 6 months. And then because Anthropic said, hey, look, we do not want you to use this in autonomous killing, and we do not want you to use this to mass surveil Americans, then Pete Hegseth went on in the tweet and said, I didn't find that tab. Okay. He is going to direct the Department of War to designate Anthropic a supply chain risk to national security, effective immediately. This means that no contractor, supplier, or partner that does business with the United States military may conduct any commercial activity with Anthropic. So this is a problem because a lot of the biggest companies in the world are using, and biggest companies not just in the world, but in the United States, are using Anthropic. So the fact that they were saying like, oh, because, I mean, essentially what they're saying here is like, because we want to like mass surveil Americans and without their consent, and also we want to use this to autonomously kill people, we're going to renege on the contract that we signed, and we are going to use this to declare Anthropic as a supply risk. So I don't know. It seems wild to call that as a supply risk, but I guess they just want to be able to do whatever they want with it, the models, and as long as it's legal. So then basically, like right after that comment was made, OpenAI made publicly announced that they were actually going to do a deal with the Department of War, and that they decided that, hey, we're going to do it, but don't worry, we've agreed that the Department of War will be doing this for lawful things. So like the Department of War promised that they won't use it for mass surveillance or autonomous weapons. And then Sam Altman made a tweet that says, hey, I know we just did this deal with the Department of War, but we do not think that Anthropic should be designated as a supply chain risk. And we've made our position on this clear to the Department of War. So anyways, with all this being said, a lot of drama. And to me, I think it makes the United States government look bad because there's really only maybe 3 companies that I think are like being the top in AI. Like we have OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google, which are the ones who are releasing most of the models. As we discussed earlier, there's a few other companies in the running, but these are, I'd say, like in the top 3 places who all kind of have like roughly state-of-the-art models. And the fact that like the US government is actively trying to sabotage one of the top 3 companies I think is really sad, to be honest, that like I mean, it feels like, you know, they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot when they're like actively hostile to like a company that they're actively using, and especially because like these companies are like really propping up the stock market. Like you don't want to see where like the US government is putting its thumb on the scale just because like in a really negative way, um when they just said like, hey, you can't use this for like really illegal things. I mean, I just feel like that's really dishonest. And then like, you know, you have a like I think 2 days later after this tweet, you had um the United States go to war with Iran. So maybe they really wanted to use these AI models in the killing decisions. I'm not sure. I'm speculating. So I don't have any information that says they did or did not. But I don't know. It's kind of like when there's smoke, there's fire. It really seems suspicious that this is the case. So yeah, I don't know. It just makes me sad that this whole thing came about, and it's just a bummer, right? That you have like the U.S. military kind of implying to say like, hey, look, like we might like mass surveil Americans. And I think like a lot of that is already probably being done, right? Like we found that what was it, more than 10 years ago now, during like the Snowden leaks, that a lot of surveillance was being used. And I guess they're probably using an OpenAI model to do that, but we don't know. We don't know anything. So don't go and sue me. But this is all alleged. But I'm just reporting the tweets that were publicly made. And it's a bummer that this came to this.
Yeah. As an immigrant, I'm gonna stay out of this topic, but move on to the next one, where an ex Google Google Maps PM a vibe coded Palantir in a weekend. So that's the title. And this is from a popular AI influencer who talks about cutting edge AI tools, demos these products, and plays around with it for people to see, and shares his learnings with the world. So he vibe coded this really cool project. It's not live. It's something he's been working on personally, but shared a video of it, which has a Google Earth, Google Maps style worldview with a lot of open source information like live flights, some supposed reports of military flights, earthquakes, satellites, street traffic, CCTV meshes, and a bunch of other information, which makes it look like you have this CIA, FBI style view of the whole world, and are you're able to see like proprietary information, even though it's like open source information, user reported information, into this really cool dashboard. And it's surprising that he was able to build this over a weekend. And I don't doubt it, given how powerful these tools have gotten. We just talked about how some of these models had close to beaten ArcAGI1, getting new highs in ArcAGI2. These coding models that are both fast and really powerful, and are getting really good at long horizon tasks. So you can just give it a goal and have it keep working on it for like hours until it like solves it and builds really, really complex apps, features, what have you. And so this is a showcase of like kind of a military application using open source information that could potentially compete with um, public companies that are giants like Palantir, that work with governments and have billions of dollars worth of contracts. And you could like vibe code this yourself over a weekend if you want to. And again, the timing of all of this was like so crazy. He was working on this last weekend when the Iran news just hit, and this news went viral. He was able to use this tool to kind of see how the airlines were congregating and waiting in like a circular holding pattern. He shows us a video. I don't know if we can find it in here, but like he showed the trajectory of a group of planes that were maybe like waiting for some orders or something, and they were just circling some spot in the middle of the ocean until they were given orders to go somewhere else. And um, deploy and do their strikes or what have you. So another really cool application of AI in uncovering some of the crazy things that have been going on in the news lately.
Do you know what tool he used to build this?
He mentioned Gemini 3.1 and Claude 4.6. The specific thing that he built, he hasn't covered in detail. Maybe you can find out about that in this video, but he just vibe coded all of it using these AI tools and open source data.
Have you been doing much vibe coding lately? I remember before you mentioned that you were using Codex and Claude. I don't know if you've had a chance to like form any opinions on which tool you like the most.
Yeah, I was playing around with as many tools as I could. I been using anti-gravity because we have a version of that at Google that I use pretty heavily. I also have Cursor. I would say they're both comparable because they both like give you a very developer-friendly experience where you can look at the code and see the changes as you're working on it. Cursor seems to be a little bit better. The autocompletes seem to be a little bit faster. The changes seem to be a little bit more cohesive. Sometimes like anti-gravity makes mistakes in applying the diffs or doesn't get the full context. Stepping away from that, comparing like Codex and Claude Code, I think Claude Code consistently was able to outperform Codex, but that was also because like it just took longer. I was looking at the thinking trace and it just kept thinking and thinking and thinking. And if it got stuck, it would like keep thinking more. Whereas if OpenAI's Codex got stuck, Codex was like they released a desktop apps where you can access the Codex models and work on code changes. And if it got stuck, I noticed that it just kind of like went with its best guess with all the available information, which is fine for a certain task. But what I was trying to do was fix something, get the best answer, and for that, Claude Code was the best. So it's again, you're dealing with all of these different employees, and each of them has a certain quirk. Each of them has a certain thing that they're better at. And I would say like Claude Code is very expensive. Maybe now it's gotten cheaper because they just released their Sonnet model, which is not as expensive, but almost as good as their most expensive model. So still kind of expensive, but it's gotten a little bit cheaper. I would say that's the best still because it gets the best result. It's able to solve things that all these other models just simply can't. But it does take a little bit longer. It is a little more expensive. If I wanted like speed, I like Codex. Codex is pretty fast. Cursor and anti-gravity are pretty fast too. Especially if you like get to pick the model, you're trying to solve a really small specific task, and it shouldn't take that long. You just want to do a very specific thing. You just ask one of the lighter models to solve the task, and it does it pretty well. So I still use a mixture of a bunch of different tools to do what I need to do based on like the complexity, based on like the scope, how much I'm willing to spend on it, if it's a side project, if it's something that I'm really concerned about, if I need a lot of input versus I don't care and I just want the AI to handle it. For a lot of design tasks, I use Stitch, like the product that I work on at Google. I use it to ideate, and there's a bunch of other design tools out there. There's a bunch of these vibe design tools that allow you to talk to an AI agent that is able to design and generate UI to help you brainstorm what an app or a website or any kind of like a layout would look like. So I go back and forth with that. It's a very human in the loop, intense task. But then for a certain coding feature where I think it's like you can rely on best practices for software architecture. I just let um, Opus or Claude Sonnet model handle it, and it does a good job. So I don't know if that answers your question, but there's no one size fits all.
I'm right with you. I've been using a lot of these tools as well. I've been also I now pay for Claude Code, and I pay for Codex, and I also pay for Gemini. So I'm just a glutton for AI subscriptions. I find myself gravitating the most to Claude Code, but you're right, it is a bit slower. And I actually noticed that I don't know if this is a conspiracy theory, but like right after Anthropic came out with their, I think it was called like Claude Code Fast or something like that, where you could pay for things being sped up. Like it was either that or after they introduced like Sonnet 4.6, I noticed that Opus was taking a lot longer. It may not be like a real conspiracy theory, because like maybe after Sonnet, maybe just more people switched over to it. But regardless, I think that they've had maybe some like scaling difficulties, because for similar problems, it has taken like a lot longer. So for example, what Codex might have been able to solve in like 2 minutes or a minute, Anthropic might take 7, 8, 9, maybe even 10 minutes to solve like the same problem. And sometimes like when the problem is complex, like you want to think that way, but I felt like in 2 minutes, Codex was able to sometimes solve things like equally good, or maybe sometimes even better than Anthropic. But sometimes it was the other way around, where Anthropic solved it better. But like oftentimes, like I'd be, you know, I'd be able to solve the problem with Codex, do a couple rounds of revisions and iterations, and then before Opus was able to just even give me back the first response, which still had some issues. But you know what I've been using that has been amazing with both Opus, like with Claude Code and Codex, is MCP integrations. So I now have had like 2 MCP integrations, which has been amazing. So I have a GitHub integration, and I have one with like a Supabase. So Supabase is like a hosted database. It's like a hosted Postgres, and I don't have it like my production database on there, but when I'm building software, or at least like for when I'm building like NovaCut, I can go and then I'll have like really detailed GitHub issues, and then I'll put it in there, or like I'll have like QA that will look at issues, and then I can just say like, hey, Claude Code, or hey, Codex, like fix issue 43014, and it can like read the issue, understand the issue if you have enough detail on it. It can leave comments on the issue, and then it can even close the issue for you. So you can like it's really been like a game changer that like it can comment on GitHub for you. So that felt like a huge win. So I want to use more MCP tools because like it's really amazing when like you say like, oh, I have this, like and like there's maybe some like mismatch in the database, and then like if you have an MCP integration where you have open like not OpenAI, but like you have like Codex, or you have the Claude Code, be able to like run database queries, and your GitHub, it can say like, oh look, hey, this was returning an issue because like this was corrupted data in your database, or oh, I see what you're saying now. And then like it can really be like a lot smarter with how it reviews your code. Now, one thing that's kind of like a wish list for me is I wish the MCP integration was better with the browser. So like recently, I think Google made a MCP integration into Chrome. Oh, and I just realized I forgot to say what MCP is. But MCP is Model Context Protocol. It's basically just like a way to connect your AI tool with like another tool. So it's just like kind of like an API that you can use to connect like tools together. So it's like if you want to make a connection to GitHub, or you want to make a connection to a database, you want to make a connection to like a browser or Slack or email or calendar, like you can, so like the AI could be aware of your calendar. But anyways, with that being said, is right now, I would like to be able to do more debugging for UI things. And like I found that I can go to a like a website, and the agent can look at the website and it can look at the UI. But like to me, I found it, at least with like Claude Code and Codex, like it used a lot of tokens and it was pretty slow, and oftentimes like missed like what I wanted on the UI. I feel like doing a full like front end debugging isn't quite there yet. So like I'm stuck just taking screenshots or describing the issues, like, oh hey, this overlaps with this. And I think that like we're close to getting it. I think that like if I spent a little bit more time like tweaking it, I might be able to get like a full front end UI debugging. But like to me, I found like it wasn't quite there yet. Actually, maybe the best tool I used for front end debugging was Stitch. So I've been using that a little bit. So that the tool that you've been working on has been excellent for that. But in general, I've been having like a hard time. So Shashank, maybe you have some like tips and tricks for that. But MCP integrations like
No,
Claude Code, amazing.
yeah, that's awesome to hear. I haven't played around with too many MCP tools because I don't like have too many other like products that I use that I want to share context with, because the day job is at Google, so I just live in Google land, and then all of my issues and things for any kind of side projects are small enough that I just have it in a text file or have it somewhere just floating around. But the GitHub MCP makes sense for issues because, if you want to track something, GitHub makes sense. All your code lives there. If you add a bunch of issues, we've been doing that at work actually, because we do rely on Git a little bit in labs. But I think I've seen Anti-Gravity launch a separate instance of Chrome for QA and testing. So if it makes some changes, it just launches the Chrome browser, loads up the website that it's working on. And obviously this only works for web products. For Android or whatever else, you might need to rely on Android Studio, which I think is working on some AI features. But sticking to web, yeah, like all of these things take way too many tokens. And it's like a trade-off between how much you want to supervise versus how much you want to be a manager, or like like a PM, an engineering manager, a project manager, or like a CEO. And it just like take a step back and have these things chug away at their own pace, even though they're not as fast and efficient as you. If you have a swarm of these agents, that's what this ex Google PM guy who vibe coded that Palantir clone was saying. He had a swarm of AI agents. So I think that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing agent swarms, and the takeaway here is that you need to be better at managing these agents. Learn how you can run these agents autonomously and forgive a little bit of excessive token usage or a little bit of latency, and work with that. Have them work on independent parallel tasks. So one thing I tried to do after our chat a few days or 2 weeks ago was I tried to use multiple Git work trees to have all of these AI agents work simultaneously on a project. And that was a nightmare because, I haven't managed people in a while, and like a lot, like a long, long while. And I realized that you need to give people, or AI agents in this case, isolated tasks and separate areas of focus so that they don't butt heads and run into merge conflicts when working on the same project. So that was like an obvious oversight that I should have thought about, and maybe I was just a little bit sleep deprived by coding. Well, like too late into the night because this is like addictive. You're able to do so much with so little. And I've been just talking to these AI agents. I don't even type anymore. I use a lot of these voice to text features built into these AI tools. I think Claude Code just released voice mode. You can type /voice and start talking. But there are some really cool tools. Open Whisper, Whisper Flow, Super Whisper. They're basically apps that allow you to talk, and they do some voice to text, which is pretty rudimentary and simple, but then they clean up that voice to text with AI and use the context that you're working with. So if you're working with code, it'll replace like slash auth.js into like a syntax highlighted, tag that file with the right kind of syntax. Or if you say at Mark Kuzmarski, it'll like in Gmail, it'll tag your email address. And so it adds a lot of context awareness. It adds a lot of LLM cleanup to just your standard voice to text. That supercharges my workflow. Having work trees, like working on the same project in different branches or different copies of the same repository, learning how to orchestrate all of these agents to do effective work without your supervision, and forgive a little bit of inefficiency, a little bit of extra token usage, a little bit of latency, as long as you can like parallelize work and be like remove your supervision, your oversight, because that's like the biggest bottleneck, I think.
Yeah, that's true. It's something that I want to get better at. And like every time I've tried to give too much, I guess like too big of a task, it always kind of runs off the rails. So, but I feel like we're kind of on the verge of being able to give like higher level tasks and then make agents for it. I think um the hard part is like having like the agent run on like taste. So like let me try to make like an argument here, right? So like I think that an agent swarm would probably be really well on a work really good on a well-defined task. For example, I think it was recently, what was it? Cursor, they were using, I think it was their composer model to make, I think it was like a C++ compiler or maybe a web browser, something like that. I remember it was one of these companies like had the AI agents autonomously work for like a week, and they were able to, I think, make a web browser and also like a C++ compiler. But the thing is like web browsers have incredibly well-defined specs that you can go off of, right? So it's like there's really good docs, there's really good test cases, and like it wouldn't be that hard to say like, hey, look, like we have this web browser, like just keep on making it until it's able to like pass like, I don't know, like all of the JavaScript spec or whatever. And like I think that's true for a lot of like really large software projects. It's like, for example, I forget what it's called, like Android, they have one. There's like a test to say like, hey, look, like you can make a fork of Android, but like if you want to be like certain, like if you want to be sure that you can like run on all the phones, like you have to pass all these tests. So it's like, all right, you're a company, you made a fork, you're like OnePlus, you want to make sure that like you're compatible with all the apps. You got to make sure you pass all these tests, right? So like that is something that I think you could have 1,000 or a million agents going and working on one little piece, and then coming together and making an operating system. But like I think where you can't have the agents like run off is when there is matter of taste or like UI, at least at this point, right? So like I'll have an AI agent try to make like something on the UI, but then like maybe like it'll be like functionally correct where the code will compile, but I just like don't like the look of it, right? Like I feel like, oh, this button like looks a little bit big, or it's like I feel like there is too much like white space or something like that. And with that, like I think like not to say like I'm like the best eye for like design or something like that. I'm not some sort of fashionista here. But like the point is that like um I want to be like that human in the loop because like I have my own taste and like I just don't like the decisions that the AI makes. And I'm sure that like if I had like tests for this type of UI, but it's like, how do you have like test for UI? It's like more of like a matter of perspective. It's like do I like the color of this painting, right? Do I like the color of this button? It's like maybe a little darker, maybe a little lighter, right? So that is where I think like you need the human in the loop. Now, I think that like what I could imagine is like in like the not so distant future, we'll be able to have um more objective measurements that are higher level. So for example, like I think what it's going to be in like the maybe near future, maybe you can even do it now if you're clever enough, is to say something like um uh increase user retention, or like make it so that like users spend the most amount of money on this website as possible. And then maybe like I don't know, you could have it where the AI will maybe look at like a website usage from each user, or like respond to customer tickets. Like maybe it could like look at ticketing systems, and they could have like a product management agent look at those tickets and then try to determine what like the next features to build. And then you can maybe like have like a completely autonomous company. But I don't think we're there yet, but we're incredibly close to that reality where like you could have the AI agent get feedback from customers and then iterate, make issues and then iterate. But I think right now, in matters of taste, the humans are still required. And it's not clear to me like how to pull the human out of it yet, but we're close, I think.
I I I have to disagree. So maybe I can just show you a quick workflow that I've been using to try to design my girlfriend, a personal website. So um, you can do the same things with code that you're doing with design. So um, I think like a UX designer, a product designer would be better equipped to explain and take you through this journey. But on a high level, you can like start with a mood board, collect other similar websites that you like that have a good design aesthetic, things that you like, things that you don't like that are counterexamples. Take a screenshot of this, toss it into your favorite LLM, ask it what it thinks of these designs for your brand, your aesthetics, and then jump into Stitch or some kind of other vibe design tool. There's plenty. There's UXPath, there's Magic Pilot, dozens of others. So ask it, hey, generate a website for this kind of a brand with these um, design principles, with these things as reference. So here I started generating a bunch of different designs. I started with some generic thing, and then I fed it some information about her, which added some blurbs, some content. And then I was like refining a little bit more. I was putting in her pictures. I was asking it to, create a little bit more of a variation. I didn't like this rigid kind of blocky layout. Let's make some circles. Let's take the circles and make it like a horizontal layout. Let's make it a little bit of dark theme. Let's add some flair. Let's add some like interesting artifacts. Let's add some bold text. So like I was going through this design process just like with code. Try something. If it doesn't work, try something else, and then go back to the AI. I take these screenshots, dump it back into Gemini, which is acting as my like design supervisor, and then it gives me feedback. Yes, there may not be like an objective right or wrong answer, but there might still be like degrees or of good or bad, and then you can kind of gravitate towards the right direction um, based on your goals, your product, your service, using similar designs from competing websites based on your values, your content, and also your personal aesthetic too. Try to mix all of that, dump that as context into your LLM, design a couple different variations, and then try to like narrow in on what makes sense for you.
So I guess I feel like we're saying the same thing, right? Because if I understand what you're saying is that like you were using like agents to make a bunch of different website variations
Yeah.
for you, and then like you were the ultimate like arbiter of truth, right? But like I guess my point is that like I don't see how that uh like workflow that you're using would be able to work autonomously um without you like 24 hours a day, right? Like like you're still needed to um I mean like you were the initial mover, right? But like uh you're still there to say like, oh, maybe do this, maybe do that, tweak this, tweak that, right? It's not like you said like make this and then you know you let it cook for a day and then you have a completed website that's perfect and objective. Like you're still going to the AI and having it refine things. So I guess like the the point that I'm trying to make is like for really long running tasks, like you need to have like some sort of thing that's verifiable. Because like right now, it's like, yeah, you can have like 100 agents make different designs for a website, but then ultimately you're the one selecting it. Like what I would like in like the magic world is to like take humans out of it completely. Um, and then have the AI find some sort of objective metric to like say like, oh, this is the most beautiful, whatever that means, or like this converts the best or something, and then it could just iterate without human involvement. And that is what I'm trying to say, that I think we're close, but not quite there yet.
Yeah, I think I think you're right. Right now, I wouldn't trust the AI to just run off on its own, primarily because it's going to cost me a lot of money, and I believe, maybe maybe this speaks to how much I value my time. I don't value my time so much that I'm willing to just burn tokens, having the AI just run off on its own and generate a bazillion different designs. I think a couple minutes of my time would return um, hundreds of dollars worth of value and save me time too. Um, but that gap is quickly closing. It's the same for coding. It's the same for design. Same for any other kinds of task. Um, but one cool thing that maybe would help with this problem is allowing the AI agent to rent a human. So a lot of AI influencers have been talking about how we need to design for the AI agent economy, and the AI agent economy is here. We saw with like OpenClaw, or what is it now? Book something Clawbot,
I don't know.
whatever.
They change the name all the time.
His
Was it Claude
his
bot? I don't know.
he's
Your
with the
agent.
OpenAI now, so it might be like OpenClaw, OpenClaw's Clawbot. But now you have this website that has 500,000 humans that can be rented by AI for a variety of things, for like plugging in physical cables in the real world, grabbing some design and walking it across the hallway from one place to another. Um, and there's tons of people here who are willing to offer their services to work and do things for AI. So if your AI agent needed to decide which design is better, um, you could use something like this.
I mean, that's true. I can imagine that you could use this to hire product testers, and then they could be the objective truth. So you're still having a human in the loop, but like maybe you don't have to do it. And as an aside, I kind of feel like uh, what we are democratizing is like how rich people have like uh acted for like centuries, right? So it's like if you were, let's say, the king, right? Like you could have like you could tell people what to do and they would do it for you, and then like you don't necessarily have to do anything. Like you could just have like your team of uh like employees, or your uh the peasants work for you. Um and they could just bring the spoils back to the kingdom, like metaphorically, or right. But like now, like any person with a computer and an internet connection can pay like $20 and have a team of digital uh employees do work on your behalf. So it's like we have now um like gone up the chain where like now everybody can manage potentially thousands of employees at once. And this is something that is brand new. And I think we're always trying to figure this out, because it's I think like managing like lots of people is a skill in and of itself, and it's hard. It's like people say like you gotta get good employees, let them do their things. But like a lot of managers still do micromanagement, and that can be a bad thing, but like also it could be a good thing. I mean, like look at Steve Jobs and making the iPhone. Like he was definitely micromanaging, but like because he did that, like you got the iPhone. So I don't know. There's lots of different opinions on this, and now many more people can try to become managers and runners of companies where all their employees are digital. And that's why I think that if it hasn't happened yet, we may be incredibly close to solo founders who are able to make $1 billion company. I think that's been a prediction for a while, and I don't know of any solo founder who has done that yet, but we might see that. We might see that in the future, where it's just like one guy and his team of agent employees could potentially make a very large company. And that is exciting to me.
That's super exciting. And I think we've covered everything that I wanted to cover. I'm almost out of battery, and I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah, sounds good. And everybody, thank you so much for listening. I know we're not having the most consistent episodes. I think it might get maybe a little bit more consistent because I'm slowing down on traveling, but I think Shashank, you're still doing a decent amount of traveling going forward. So the episodes probably will continue to be sporadic, at least for the next few months, most likely, just because like we're both moving around. But maybe in the nearest future we'll like slow down on the traveling. So yeah, if you have any questions, leave a comment on the YouTube video. That would be the best way to do so. Also, check out NovaCut. It's the project I've been working on. So a lot of new features have been built. The whole video process has gotten a lot more interactive. So if you have any videos that you would like to edit, like if you are sick and tired of manually watching all your footage in Premiere Pro, using DaVinci Resolve, using Final Cut Pro, if you're spending hours and hours editing video, or spending a lot of money for a video editor and you want to save time, consider using NovaCut. It's something I've been working really hard on, and I think it is arguably the best tool for long form AI video editing right now. So would love for you to check that out. I will put a link to that in the description. But anyways, as always, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.